The wait is finally over. Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft 1.0 has arrived. We're running through the top 10 picks and more. That's coming up. Plus, we're responding to your questions, your takes, and your draft dreams live as First Draft starts right now. Welcome into First Draft. You can listen to us twice a week, every Monday and Thursday. That's right, twice a week now. Live on the NFL on ESPN YouTube channel, plus wherever you get your podcasts. And starting next week, Mondays on ESPN2 as well. He is, of course, Mel Kiper Jr. His big board is out right now. His mock draft is out right now on Field Yates. Mel, though, a big day. How did it feel to press send on the email to the editors of ESPN.com with your first mock draft?
Yeah, it's probably the easiest one to feel because you make your decisions early and you always feel bad about a pick or two. Like Ashton, Jeanty was the one. I was thinking Dallas and I bumped them down a bit. So there's always one you say in that write-up, you want to mention maybe an option or two that you had. But I think the fun part is talking to your friends in the NFL. Because it's always going to be a different view and a different opinion of what you have. And remember, everybody, this mock draft is not based on my rating. It's not based on how I would draft for each team. It's based on what I'm hearing they may do, who they like, obviously with the needs as they are right now. So this is just what you're hearing from your friends in the NFL, not based on anything even remotely close to what my ratings suggest these teams should do.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're wondering what Mel and I might do, if you want to get a general sense at least, over the past 3 shows, we conducted an alternating mock draft. Had plenty of engagement on that, and we're, of course, going to get to some of your tweets today throughout the show, but check those out. They're all available if you're listening to the podcast, wherever you get that. If you are watching on YouTube, just go through the archive videos on this page you are at right now. Mel, my only thing that I'm going to say before we get started, because we want to rip through all 10 of the first picks, plus some other notable ones here today on the show, is that there are people that say mock drafts are dumb, and who cares whether you get any of the picks right, because you're going to miss on more of them than it actually matters. Mocks are entertainment, people. They're very fun, and I have some news for you. People inside the NFL, teams are doing mock drafts on their own, and they find some real value in these mock drafts, because while not every team is going to be disclosing a lot of their plans, you're going to get a general sense of where teams stack players on boards, and other teams are going to use your mock drafts as data points. Enjoy them. They are fun. They are often informative. Here we go, Mel Kiper Jr. It is, without further ado, Mel Kiper's mock draft 1.0. We are on the clock.
So it is my pleasure to declare the mock draft officially open. The pick is in.
A reminder, the Tennessee Titans have the first pick in the mock draft, actually the real draft. I guess they could trade it, but it's a new era in Tennessee. Mike Borgonzi, their general manager, was officially introduced yesterday to the media in Nashville. I'm going to play the role of commissioner in this mock draft. You're not going to get 15 minutes like the first round of the real draft, Mel. You're going to get about 15 seconds. So with the first pick in Mel Mock 1.0, Tennessee Titans select who?
I think it might be 10 minutes, Phil. I don't know what it is, but I'm a little distracted today. I just want everybody to know I'm a little distracted because the number one pick in this draft is Fields' hair. I mean, I came on. I think this is Yates Fielding that I'm doing a show with. Is this really you? Because look at that hair. That ain't Fields' hair. So something went awry here today. I love it. I think it's a new look, but it just is a different look. And it was hard to get used to initially, but now I'm kind of coming around. But for all our viewers out there, I'm a little skeptical whether I'm talking Field. I thought I was getting punked a little bit. Maybe that's not Field. Is it Memorex? What is it? Is it really you, my friend?
So Mel, people who are watching this may know that back in August, I suffered a pretty significant shoulder injury. It was a torn labrum and a dislocated shoulder that required surgery. And once I was able to start doing some work to my body again, I decided to start taking some serious supplements here, Mel. I wanted to get back. I wanted to be bigger, better, and badder than ever.
Okay.
The problem is this. I really couldn't lift too many weights over the past few months. So all those supplements just went right to my hair instead. So I said, let me let it grow out a little bit. And if you want to
a lot of volume going there, Fielding.
That's how much respect I have for Mel Mock 1.0. On Mel Mock 1.0 day, I've got the Mel hairstyle going. I can't touch it, though. I can't touch it. One hair might fall out of place.
Hey, you got the hair from maybe 35 years ago, not now. Okay. You're going way back to 84,
That was the
88,
John Elway
92, maybe late night, sort of thin out. So now there's no comp to this. You're doing a GQ magazine deal now. You got the sides all thinned out, nice. It's looking a little shimmering up there, a little shiny. That's good.
That'd be a good GQ article. You know, the origins of first draft, how Mel Kiper Jr. made the draft what it is today. Titans fans are probably sitting there saying to themselves, shut up about your hair, Field. Nobody cares. We care about who we're taking number one overall. So walk me through it, Mel. So who'd you take?
Well,
what was the thought process?
People would say, well, Kiper's got Shedeur. Why? Cam Ward, when I spoke to people in the league, said, hey, the arm strength, obviously Cam Ward's stronger arm than Shedeur Sanders. Okay. Yep. Mobility. 17 rushing touchdowns the last 3 years. Cam Ward more mobile than Shedeur. Shedeur does always work in the pocket. Yes, he can roll right and left, but Cam Ward with those arm angles every which way, mobility, the accuracy. Now he's got to clean up, I should say, and get less reckless, less careless with the football, with the fumbles. In the NFL, it's not college. You guys are right there, so they're going to sweat that ball out. You're going to get scooping scores. You're going to have all kinds of issues with turnovers unless you clean that up. And he does get reckless and careless at times. But the everybody I spoke to thought Cam Ward over Shedeur. I got one Shedeur out of the so I go with the consensus. That's what we try to do, Field. You build a consensus with our friends, and we don't talk to all 32 teams. We just have a handful of guys that we talk to, and in those conversations, and these are guys I respect, and both in and out of the league. Some are even out of the league that have been former general managers. They all have an opinion. So I put it all together, and it came up Cam Ward. Now, is that too high? Based on rating, some say these quarterbacks are going to be so overdrafted it's ridiculous. Remember their grade. I gave Caleb, Jaden, and Drake a 9.8. Now my rating scale goes 9.9 down, right?
Okay. Yep. I
gave these two right now a 9.1, 9.2 in that area. So there's a big difference in grade, but in terms of the rankings board, they're at 4-5. I said that the first round's underwhelming. The draft overall pretty good from the second round on. So I think they're okay at 1-2, 1-3, wherever they're going to go in the draft. A lot of people in the league field that I spoke to, some of the ones I spoke to said that's a little high. Some said you can't do it. Bottom line is, if you need a quarterback, what the hell are you going to do? You got to figure it out.
Yeah, Mel, that's the point that matters here, is if you're the Titans and your new general manager, Mike Borgonzi, I don't know what kind of leash they have right now in Tennessee. I don't know if the owner, Amy Adams-Strunk, has said, hey, we're not worried about finding the quarterback specifically this year. We want you to build this team that you believe is the right way. And if you don't think a quarterback is, you don't think there's a quarterback out there via draft, trade, or free agency that gets us on the path towards where we want to go, don't force the issue. In my experience, Mel, and I think yours would echo this, most owners don't think that way, right? When they have the number one pick in the draft and they've got a lot of money to spend and they just came off of a really bad season, they're saying to their GM or their head coach, let's find a quarterback, whether it's through the draft or free agency or a trade. The trade market is going to be cold this offseason. The free agency market revolves around one guy. That's Sam Darnold. And by the way, Sam can only go to one team. So we'll see where Sam ends up, but it's not like it's a slam dunk that it is the Titans. So if it's not Cam Ward to pick one, where are you getting a quarterback, Mel? History has told us that second, third, fourth, the further away you get from pick number one, the less certain the player is. I have described Cam Ward because the conversation has started to bubble up a lot. Is he a number one overall worthy pick? Well, not every number one overall pick is created equally, right? The Chiefs took Eric Fisher back in 2013. Eric Fisher's not going number one overall in very many drafts, but he went number one that year because of the need and the rest of the class. I think Cam Ward is a passable number one overall player, but clearly wouldn't have been number one overall a year ago or the year prior to that. Maybe even the year prior to that. So I understand the pick here, Mel. The Titans do what they have to do, which now means the Browns are on the clock. They also could really use a quarterback, Mel. Are we convinced that quarterbacks go 1-2 off the board to begin?
Yeah, unlike Tennessee, who has Will Levis, who I like coming out. And I think Will Levis did some really good things as a rookie, did some really good things this year, did a couple bad things. Had that one bad play in a couple games. How does Borgonzi feel about him? What does Callahan feel about him? Are you just going to let the young quarterback come in and say, hey, we got to get an upgrade? We'll see how that plays out. Cleveland, hey, they're sitting there saying, okay, Shedeur Sanders, right? Is Shedeur a good fit for Cleveland? Weather, cold in Cleveland, cold in Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
I don't see Travis Hunter's the best player in this draft. We all agree with that.
I agree. Yeah.
Travis Hunter, and if you like Will Levis enough to get Travis Hunter, you take him at Tennessee 1 and you try to see what Will Levis is this year. If you're not convinced Will Levis is the guy, and the same thing with Cleveland and the same thing with the Giants. You better daggone side believe that these two quarterbacks can be a home run. Your decision can't be, we have to have a quarterback. We're taking one of these two, even though we don't love them. You have to have conviction on one of these two to take them over Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. You have to. So I don't know how they feel, these two teams, these three teams, but I guarantee you by late April, you know what will probably happen, Field? They'll talk themselves. Somebody will talk themselves in to a quarterback or two. I don't think Cleveland does. I think Cleveland takes Travis Hunter. They need a dynamic presence at wide receiver, sprinkle him in at corner. Hey, go find another quarterback. I don't know where Sam Darnold's going to end up. I don't know what's going to happen with Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins. There's a lot of other options out there. I think Cleveland passes on the quarterback. And I do think the Raiders at 6 could trade up to 2. I didn't project the trade. Yep. Tom Brady influence there. Relationship with Shedeur. We talked about that a lot over our podcast. 6-2 to get Shedeur ahead of the Giants, right? Will the Giants go from 3-2 to guarantee the acquisition of Shedeur, like happened with Mitchell Trubisky back in the day, right? Didn't work out well there, but they did move from 3-2, right? So at the end of the day, I think we're going to see some activity, but how strong they feel about these quarterbacks is paramount. It's paramount. And that goes to the Giants at 3. I went Shedeur. I went Travis Hunter. Shedeur, people say, well, Brian Daboll likes mobile quarterbacks. He had Josh Allen. Well, they drafted Josh Allen at 7. Yeah. Okay. Then he goes to Daniel Jones. Well, when the Ravens had Joe Flacco, who they won a Super Bowl with, they went to Lamar Jackson. Right. What's it there? I mean, you adapt. You adapt. Whatever you have. Cam Ward can move around. Okay. Cam Ward had 17 rushing touchdowns in 3 years. Shedeur Sanders isn't that guy. Shedeur Sanders from the pocket. He's like Tom Brady, liking the way he's a surgeon, right? And getting the team moving down the field, but there was accurate throws and standing tough in that pocket, hanging tough in that pocket. That's Shedeur Sanders. And if Daboll doesn't like that, and go get another quarterback. That's all I can say. There's 4 other quarterbacks who could be in the late first, early second, mid-second round range. But I went Shedeur to the Giants at 3.
Yeah, so I think there's the past 2 picks have been what I would say logical selections here. I'm not going to offer a ton of analysis whenever we talk about Travis Hunter in our mock draft because he's the number 1 player in my big board as well. He has the potential to be an all-pro player as a wide receiver or a cornerback. Hard to pass on a guy like that. The Patriots at number 4, though, feel like maybe the most interesting next upcoming pick here, Mel, because a team who going into week 18 had the first overall selection, things would be much different if they still had that number 1 overall pick. The Patriots, though, pick 4, have a very glaring and obvious pair of needs. They need an offensive tackle. They need a wide receiver. They might need multiple wide receivers. But we know they also have other needs, and this may be the point of the board where their primary needs don't align with the players that are available. So who are the Patriots taking at number 4?
Yeah, my big boards echo what you just said. Edge is a need. Edge is their 3rd need. Okay, in my opinion,
big time.
You go to Abdul Carter's number 2 on my board.
Yep.
Offensive tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. Texas is 10. Will Campbell's 11. You take the second best player when you're picking 4th. If he's available, if Abdul Carter is available at this spot, a pass rusher, by the way, this past year had 24 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, couple forced fumbles, and 68 tackles. First 2 years combined, he had 11 sacks. He had 12 this year in one season. Why? Because he played on the edge. He was Micah Parsons. He can be Micah Parsons in the NFL. That's what people hope he can be. We're at number 11, same type of athlete, same type of talent getting after the quarterback as a pass rusher. So for New England in the AFC, knowing you got to chase down and run after Josh Allen and Tua and all those other great quarterbacks in the AFC, why in the world wouldn't Abdul Carter be the pick here if he's available over the offensive tackle? You tell me why. Give me a reason why an offensive tackle would go over Carter, Field.
So the only thing that I would say here, Mel, and I don't feel strongly about this because I agree with you. I'm at the point now where if it were me making the pick, and we did this exercise a few weeks ago, and I did take an offensive tackle in Will Campbell, but the Patriots need players everywhere. I would say right now they have 2 undisputed building block players that look like the guys that are, Pro Bowl potential players, right? Drake May, Christian Gonzalez. May's got a long ways to go, but still, the promise is there. Christian Gonzalez was named an All-Pro this season. Every other spot on the roster, Mel, the Patriots need to evaluate and see if they can upgrade. And Abdul Carter's just a better prospect than the other guys who are available right now. I'm a big fan of Will Campbell. I like Kelvin Banks. I like Tetairoa McMillan. Those are the names that I think will also be discussed. But too good to pass up is Abdul Carter. He would immediately transform their defensive front. The only reason why you wouldn't go Abdul Carter here, Mel, is because we've only had two, as of the time of this conversation, only two coaching hires made official. Only one of them, by the time we're recording this, has addressed the media, Mike Vrabel. And he talked about the importance of fortifying the offensive line. So some coaches may just say, hey, we need to build that offensive line out. That's probably the strongest argument. That being said, Mel, you and I are in agreement.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, who's in worse position at right tackle in the Tennessee Titans? Their right tackle spot was a disaster.
Yeah,
that's why Will Levis regressed, because they were always in behind the sticks because the right tackle was making a mistake, either lining up, in an illegal formation, holding penalties, false starts, or laying a block. Everything at right tackle could go wrong. They're awful there. So they got to get better, but you don't force it. There's nobody to take. New England, I get it. You got free agency, you got the rest of the draft, you get offensive linemen. Jacksonville, to me, is where they become a fortunate team to get a Mason Graham.
Ooh,
and that defensive tackle spot, I know they got some young guys, Mason Smith as well. You get another Mason, right?
Yeah,
Mason Graham.
Masons. Yeah.
But guess what? That defensive tackle spot was horrific for Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. They're good on the edges. Trayvon Walker coming on, right? Allen as well. But inside that interior of the defensive line needs a Mason Graham. Now, Cisco's going to be leaving at safety, right? You got a cornerback need opposite, Campbell. You like Jones. You love Jones to the slot corner. You love all that, but you need another corner. You need another safety, and you need a defensive tackle. I think Mason Graham, to me, was automatic at 6 or at 5 for Jacksonville.
Yeah, Mel, there have been times, and I think I've articulated this previously, but I believe in this is an evaluation that I think is probably subject to change a little bit. But as of this conversation, January 23rd, I feel personally, Mel, that there are 3 players who, when you factor in skill set, build, positional ability, what we know about them as far as their competitiveness, etc., there are 3 true blue prospects in this class, in my opinion. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. 3 guys that no matter the year, you're talking about them as potential top 5 picks. Mm-hmm. Top 5, top 8 picks. That's where I evaluate. Remember last year we had the great 8-year Elite 8. I think these 3 guys are unequivocally deserving of going very high every single year. So Mason Graham, I don't really see a major flaw in the game. Is he super long like Eric Armstead, his new teammate in this scenario in Jacksonville? No. That being said, didn't we just watch Braden Fisk have one of the great rookie seasons at any position this past year coming out of Florida State? And one of the knocks on him was the lack of elite length. Some guys just find a way to disrupt the quarterback. 5 picks in, Mel, 6 pick coming up. And as you mentioned, the Jaguars, they were in a very good spot and had a lot of flexibility here. The Raiders don't get a quarterback, so where do they go pick number 6?
That's where I think the Raiders may try to trade up. Now, I think to that point about the 3, that's why I don't buy this argument that the quarterbacks are way too. What's the difference in the quarterback grade to all these other guys who are all bunched together? Okay. Yeah. And I said the 2nd through 7th round is going to be really strong. There's no question. 2nd, 3rd round, the Bears have 2 second-round picks pretty early on. They're in good shape. But the first round from pick 4 on down, look at my rankings board, 4 to 25. There's not much separating those players, Field. There really isn't. And some of those guys, 3 of them were injured. Really, the 4th with Will Johnson were injured. Okay. And didn't even finish out the year. So this notion that there's other players that are rated way ahead of Shedeur, Sanders, and Cam Ward, tell me who they are. I mean, I said that, and they couldn't really come up with a lot of names. I said, well, okay, if you can't come up with a lot of names, then how can you argue not taking the quarterback early? I understand it. I said earlier, you got to love them. You got to love them. But in this draft, who else are you going to take? So again, I think trading up for Shedeur is a positive. If they're stuck there, you said the name, Tetairoa, McMillan, T-Mac, right?
Yep. Yeah.
T-Mac for the Raiders, and the Raiders maybe Sam Darnold's the Raider quarterback. I don't know who they go after. Maybe Justin Fields. The options are out there. But if they go up to get Shedeur, you're going to have to go up to 2 more than likely, right? You'd think 2. If they can't do that, don't do that. McMillan would make sense. McMillan's 3 years in a row, Field. He was consistent as anybody in the country. Catching the football, making big plays down the field. 213 career receptions, 16-yard average, 26 touchdowns. That's production and consistency, reliability. The kid's what, 6'4" and change, 212 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, he will be a fear factor player in the NFL, and I think he'd be a really good pick for the Raiders.
Mel, no doubt about that. This question comes from David Gilbert on Twitter, David Gilbert 12, who asks, could you enlighten us on what the top 3 wide receivers bring to the table? His assessment is those 3 wide receivers are, in some order, Travis Hunter, T-Mac, and also Luther Burden, and the best fit scheme-wise for them. Let me start by saying this, Mel. When we're talking about players going in the first 5, 6, 7, 10 picks, I don't care about scheme. If you're good, you're great. You know, like, it's organizational negligence if you can't get a lot out of a player of Tetairoa McMillan's caliber, right? As far as the skill set goes, like T-Mac at 6'5", 210 pounds, and get used to hearing this story. He's a former volleyball player, and he plays like it, right? He's got this go-go gadget set of arms. He can get up for the football. He can make these outside of his catch radius receptions that are just a thing of beauty. Very crafty route runner. I mentioned the excellent size. I think the one misnomer about T-Mac, Mel, that is starting to bubble up a little bit from people that I see talking about him online is this. Not a great separator. I don't know, Mel. Listen, I'm not saying this guy is Mike Evans in terms of downfield separation, one of the greatest players, certainly a Hall of Fame player in my opinion. This guy can separate, though. I'm not concerned as much about T-Mac. I don't know if he's a 4.41 guy. I don't think his speed, though, is a real concern for me. Travis Hunter is just electric, explosive. He kind of glides through the air. What would you say your opinion, your assessment of Luther Burden is as a player in terms of what he brings to the table?
He's kind of an enigma a little bit because they expected greatness. And I know Matt Miller's a big fan of Luther Burden III. Yeah. We all like Luther Burden, but Luther Burden's production this year wasn't what it was last year. Yeah. It wasn't even close. Theo Weiss did what he was doing for Brady Cook and company. Bottom line is, he's got talent. He was rated highly coming out of high school. You saw him, at least even in the games, they weren't even throwing to him. At the end of the game, he made the big catch. It was a South Carolina game. He made the big catch late, I believe. And then South Carolina ended up beating them in the final minute. But Luther Burden came through in the clutch. We'll see where I have him going down the line. I put him a little higher than the rating for me because I kept hearing it. No, he's way too talented to drop to 20, 25. Yeah. He's not dropping that far. So I went with what I'm here. And that's I can't stress it enough, guys and gals. Anybody listening, okay? We're doing what we're hearing. We're not doing what we would do. We're doing what we're hearing from our friends in the NFL based on that and based on the needs of the teams as they are right now, okay? So that's what we're basing all this on. So that's why I have Burden. I'll just go skip it. I have Burden going to Dallas over Ashton Jeanty. They need a receiver. Burden at that point, I think, would make some sense. Yeah. Now, let's go. Now, this was a tricky pick for me. The Jets.
Going to number 7 here? Okay, we're going to number 7. Yeah. I got us off the rails here for a second. We're back 7 through 10. Mel, let's start with the Jets at number 7.
Yeah, tricky pick because I had both Georgia Bulldogs. I gave him – we did Jalon Walker back when we did our mock last week. Okay, because you move him around, edge, off ball. He's making all kind of plays. Jalon Walker had a heck of a year. I mean, the first 2 years there, you're talking about combined, what he was able to do. Pretty amazing, what he was able to do this year. How much more production. And I think that's the key. Jalon Walker took it to another level. Mykel Williams this year, despite an ankle injury, produced some decent results. I mean, he was popping, but he wasn't out there just taking over games. So you notice it. He needs some technique work, and he needs some coaching. And we said the same thing about Trayvon Walker. So I thought for the Jets, and I kept hearing when I said Mykel Williams, I said, I'm kind of no, Mykel Williams, you can make an argument, is that 4th best player in this draft. Yep. Okay? He's the 4th best player or the 3rd best player, one said. He could be when I heard that emphatically, I said, okay, he's my number 1 LT peer. He's my LT peer. He looks the part. Okay. And that's Mykel Williams. And so I gave him to the Jets. Okay, at number 7 over Jalon Walker. And I think one of those two could be the pick here. Drop Jalon Walker down just a bit to Carolina at 8.
Oh, so one pick. There you go. One pick
back
later.
To back. I went back, and Carolina needs that guy. That versatility that Jalon Walker showed. I said, first 2 years, 6 sacks. This year, 6.5. So first 2 years, 6. This year, 6.5. First 2 years, 8 tackles for loss. This year, 11. 60 total tackles. This year, they talk about a guy who was all over the field popping. At number 11 was everywhere. So I think Jalon Walker to Carolina, because you can play him off ball and outside off the edge, getting after the quarterback, or rush in the interior. Jalon Walker at 8 for Carolina over the corner. Will Johnson makes sense for me based on everything I heard.
And just my only thought here on Jalon Walker, and every year I do this, Mel, I survey scouts, and I just say, who are the guys that independent of their ability, you would bet on the person. You think the football character is off the charts good, that you're going to get the very best from that player. guys at the top of the, like, we're talking like Calais Campbell in his whatever 20th year now. Guys who are younger, Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions. That guy gives everything he has on every single play. Who are the kind of guys that fit that mold? And I'm not saying that the players that don't fit this mold, Mel, have bad character by any stretch, but I'm looking for the guys that shine brightest. Amongst the names that we've talked about that have already come up in conversations, Travis Hunter, Jalen Walker. Hunter, I mean, a guy who's incredible in terms of just ability alone. Someone was explaining to me, like, do you not think about and understand the mental toughness it takes to play two positions at once? Like, twice the meetings, twice the conditioning, twice the concentration. Like, that guy is rare in so many ways. Jalen Walker, same thing. This player is not just a very talented guy, but a very determined player. The Panthers need edge rushers in a major way. He would go there in this scenario. You mentioned Will Johnson was also in consideration. How far does he fall?
I got him at 9 to the Saints. And I think Will Johnson with 9 interceptions in his career, 3 pick sixes, opportunistic, anticipation, and boom, there he is, and he's impacting a game. You know, he missed the 7 games with the injury. He's going to be fine. Will Johnson, I understand, and again, everybody says, how fast is he going to be? Yeah. We talked about arm length with Will Campbell, height with Kelvin Banks Jr., medical for a lot of guys, but for Will Johnson, he'd come back from the injury, he'll be fine. But what's he going to run? Is he going to run? TJ Tampa, Baltimore drafted at 4.51. May end up being a safety, could be a corner, I'm not sure, but they like him a lot. But that 4.51 is why he dropped a little bit in the draft. Will Johnson, we've had it before with corners that didn't run 4.35 to 4.45 that still went high. Remember what Joe Hayden's 40 time was back in the day. Bottom line is Will Johnson, I think, goes somewhere in that 9 to 15 range for need area alone. I went here at 9 to the Saints. I think they could use a kid like this, like I say, super opportunistic, a guy that finds the football at key moments. And I'll tell you what, he's, I think 9 to 15 range, I think is where I think you'll see him come off the board.
I think that makes total sense, Mel. And I hate to make something as simple as one number. If Will Johnson runs during the pre-draft process, and keep in mind, he missed 2/3, 3/4 of this past season because of a foot injury. We have not seen Will Johnson play a game in months. If he does run and the number goes 4.4 something, he's fine, right? If it's 4.5 something, the conversation shifts a little bit. I know that sounds ridiculous. What's the difference between 4.49 and 4.51? Just telling you, sometimes the way the draft works, it can be as simple as 2/100.
That's why I'm stressing the field. I stress it over the range. There's a range for some guys. There's not a range for everybody, but there's a range, a very fluid situation developing depending upon that 40 time for Will Johnson. That's why I say it could be early first, could drop into the mid to later first.
Yeah, that's how it goes, Mel. It just is the nature of the beast. All right, last pick here in the top 10, and I'm going to rip through some notable takeaways, but we are on the clock with the first pick of the Ben Johnson era. I'm really, really excited about what this this Bears offense is going to look like with the former Lions offensive coordinator. What does he do, or what does Ryan Poles do to satisfy Ben Johnson in the first pick?
Where'd Ben Johnson come from? A team with the best offensive line in the NFL. Them and the Eagles, right? Now you're going to Chicago, who has 4 areas they got to hit. They got a right tackle and Darnell Wright. They need help in a lot of spots. Will Campbell, your guy from LSU, you had going 4th in our mock to New England. We did it last week. If his arm length isn't left tackle-like, then it kicks into guard. They need help at 4 spots, not 1 spot. So they're hoping left tackle. Obviously, arm length will dictate that. If you're drafting at 10, the arm length's acceptable, right? If it's acceptable arm length for Will Campbell, he goes here. And then if he has to kick inside the guard down the road, he could be great. Whatever you need him, he turned out to be and proved himself at LSU as a highly regarded player coming in, had a heck of a career. But we talked about Kelvin Banks Jr. I had him going 1 spot lower to San Francisco. Height for him, is he 6'4", 6'4" and change, 6'3" and 3/4. What's his accurate height? And then the arm length, as I said, for Will Campbell, that will determine those 2 tackles where they come off the board.
I will say this, though, Mel. I'm going to go down fighting here on Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, too, is that, like, I don't want to see them drop too low. Like, I still think the fact that these 2 players have been day 1 left tackles at 2 of the biggest programs in college football, protecting for 3 of the most notable quarterbacks in college football for the past 3 years, between Jaden Daniels, Quinn Ewers, and Garrett Nussmeier, who might become a first-round player next year. The fact that these guys played for that long and were that dependable and are that high character and that athletic, think does count for something. I do think these players deserve to get some shine here. All right, we're going to recap the top 10, Mel. And then we're going to go to the takeaways that I have from picks 11 through 32. We could do all 32 picks, but a couple that really stood out to me. The Titans take Cam Ward. The Browns take Travis Hunter. The Giants take Shedeur Sanders. The Patriots take Abdul Carter. The Jaguars take Mason Graham. The Raiders take Tetairoa McMillan. The Jets take Mykel Williams. The Panthers follow with his Georgia teammate Jalon Walker. Will Johnson of Michigan goes 9 to the Saints. And the Bears take Will Campbell from LSU to play somewhere along the offensive line. Go check out the mock draft in full. It's available over on ESPN.com. I had a few takeaways here, Mel, from picks 11 through 32. I'm not going to go through every pick. We simply don't have the time to do so on this show. You mentioned Luther Burden, though, at number 12 already. So we've already kind of dove into that one, and you highlighted the reasons why it's interesting. He's a player that is very, very, very talented, but also maybe created some questions this past year. The picks that I thought were most interesting next were back-to-back, 15 and 16. The Atlanta Falcons taking Shemar Stewart. And I think we have to keep talking about this player here, Mel, because there are going to be fans who get involved in the draft process maybe as late as the night of the draft itself. And they're going to say a guy that you want to fix our pass rush, who never had more than 1.5 sacks in a season, is worth a 15th overall pick. What kind of crazy juice is MEL Kiper Jr. on?
Yeah, exactly. He's not as highly rated as that. He's 21 on the board. He's not 15 or above. And I've always believed if you're at 15, you get somebody inside your 15 on your board. So it wouldn't be my pick, but for a team that needs somebody like this off, they say, well, how can he be? And this is always, how can you be a double-digit sack guy in the NFL when, as you said, each of the last 3 years only had 1.5 sacks? And guess what, Field? This is what I always look at. One career forced fumble only.
Yeah.
Okay. So he wasn't getting after it. He wasn't disruptive, but he popped. There were games where you saw flashes. And I think for Shemar Stewart, just like Oweh in Baltimore, didn't have a sack when he ended Penn State career, they drafted him in the first round. Somebody's going to look at the skill set, and on a defensive line coach is going to say, hey, I can get this guy to 8 to 12. I always say the magic numbers are 8 to 12 sacks. If you don't believe you can get him to that point, not taking him here. If you believe you can get to 8 to 12 sacks with Shemar Stewart, you take him. He is, like I said, he's the roll of the dice. You're rolling the dice. You're taking a gamble on greatness here. And basically, it is boom or bust. It is make your draft or break your heart. It is that. That's what Shemar Stewart is. But he's another LTPer. He's a looked apart. There's LTPers. That's another one right there. And I have him going middle of the first round.
Mel, he's not just LTPer. This guy is like first team all-pro LTPer, right? And I think, and I'm actually open to, if you have a player that you think more encapsulates this, of the guys that I think have a credible chance of going in the first round, I don't think anybody is going to generate a wider variance of opinions than Shemar Stewart, because they're going to be GMs that come into the process late and only see the highlights and say, this guy's 6'6", 285 pounds. He runs through offensive tackles. He deflects passes the line of scrimmage like Cam Hayward out there. Like, you mean this guy isn't going to go into the second round? They're going to be area scouts that have been following this kid for 3 years in Texas A&M. And they're going to say, for 3 years, they've been telling me this guy's going to be the next great defensive lineman from Texas A&M University. And it hasn't happened yet. I think he's going to have some really, really interesting, he's going to lead to some very interesting debates within draft rooms. That being said, I do think like the range for him is actually earlier than 15th overall. Like, I think it sounds crazy. Like somewhere in the top 10, I'm just telling you, I've seen wilder things happen in my career than Shemar Stewart creeping into the top 10, even though I personally would not endorse that pick.
Yeah, there's two schools of thought. Production, you got to have production in college against the AOGs, another occupation guys, or you have to go on. Bottom line is you look at the situation here and you say, okay, this is a guy you're betting on in the NFL that it's not who you are, it's who you will be. It's not who you are, it's who you will be. That's what you're betting on with Shemar Stewart, what you can have him become once he's coached up in the NFL.
All right, so the next pick, Mal, was not that crazy of a pick because if you were doing this mock draft back in September, I don't think it's a crazy pick now, Mel. Sometimes, and I'll just be totally transparent here, Mel, and you've been doing this since it started, and you are the best to ever do it, best to ever will do it, so maybe this does not happen with you anymore. But I'll just be fully transparent to the people out there that are watching right now. You know, I've got, until the declaration date, which was a few days ago, I had 368 players in my database I removed 61 because 61 decided to go back to school. It's hard to keep track of 368 players every single day and every single week. Those who follow the show may know I do a lot of fantasy football work during the football season as well. There are guys where sometimes they just fall a little bit off the radar, and sometimes you just got to get caught back up on them and remind yourself of what they are. And that might be where I think we land with Tyler Booker, who goes 16th overall to the Cardinals, Mel. Is that like kind of just forgotten, right? He's a guard. It's not like guards score touchdowns or have, strip sacks. You don't see them on SportsCenter top 10 plays. And you've got a 350-pound, will-imposing guard to the Arizona Cardinals. What do you like about his game beyond what I just mentioned?
Love the way the kid plays. I think he could be the best pure guard because some of the guys are projecting inside from tackle, but as a pure guard, he gets the job done at a high level, and he's a guy who can blow you off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't allow penetration. I like the fact he's a guy that can beat you both ways. He can beat you as a run blocker, and he's not going to allow you to get after the quarterback. So as a pure guard, I think when you look at this team, what they need, help out Kyler Murray along the interior, I thought that pick made a lot of sense. It kind of worked in unison with what I was hearing too, Field. Yeah. So I thought, well, it's a little too high for a guy that's going to be a guard in the NFL. But hey, how about Zach Martin, right? How about what you talk about different guys that have come out? Look at Skoronski and different ones.
Yeah.
So that guard spot, if you can be a Pro Bowl caliber guard, and they think this kid, and it seems that everything indicates he could be, it's not too high.
I'm with you, Mel, but I just think the player, has, the pedigree, the power, all of those things are really good. Just 4 penalties this past season, a respectable number for a guy of this size and stature. He is a punisher in the running game. Like, I just don't know if there's a pound for pound, a stronger player in the entire draft class. We talked about this a couple days ago on the alternating mock when he crept in the back end of the first round. And I'll just say this, Mel, too, is I think this year, and I mentioned this again on Monday's show, like, just watch some of the guards who get paid in free agency. We're not quite at the level of offensive tackle, but back in the day, the idea was a guard is a guard is a guard, right? You kind of just interchange them. We're no longer at that level. The pay reflects the top tier guards have come a long, long way. So interesting back-to-back picks right there. Let's move forward to a couple others, though, that caught my attention. A few spots after this, Nick Emmanwori, safety, South Carolina, Buccaneers, number 19. Introduce America to what Emmanwori brings to the table.
Well, you look at a kid who is 6'3", 227 pounds, number one, who can run as well as any safety to come out in recent years, athletically gifted, kind of 40-plus vertical. And this past year, you talk about production, 88 tackles, 3 tackles lost, 4 interceptions, 2 pick sixes. Yeah. This kid was all over the field making plays. Yeah. You talk about popping each week. It wasn't just flashes. Nick Emmanwori was getting it done. Kyle Hamilton came out. He dropped a little bit down to the Ravens. They didn't expect him to be there. That big, athletic, fast, physical presence at that spot for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think it's too high. And I had at least 2 say he could be going higher than Malachi Starks. Don't be shocked if he goes ahead of Malachi Starks. So Malachi Starks, we talked about, I love Malachi Starks. He didn't have the greatest of years. He missed some tackles, had the great interception against Clemson. I think he's a magnet going to the football. He had like 6-7 career interceptions, only 1 this year. Bottom line is Malachi Starks is a heck of a football player. When I spoke to teams, even throughout the September, October portion of the year, they were still saying, Malachi Starks is one of the best 5, 6, 7 players in the draft. And I agree. Did he drop back a bit?
A bit.
Yes.
A bit, Mel.
Did Emmanwori on your board's field? Did he catch him?
He's getting there. Remember last year, Mel, early in the process where we were sitting there and we were debating a lot of things. And we told you, we sat here on this show. And I don't like when people do this, Mel. So I'm about to break my own rule. But every day, apparently, and it's now in vogue these days to when you say something months ago and it turns out right, you go back and you say, didn't I say this months ago? Wasn't I the first person to tell you? But I'll be damned if there are a lot of people talking about Jaden Daniels going ahead of Drake May or Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. being a neck-and-neck race to the finish line. We were talking about this last year, early in the process. And I don't know that it's quite at that level yet for Malachi Starks versus Nick Emmanwori. But there are some people that view it as a neck-and-neck race. And that's enough for me to alert the masses, like your mock does, that you better buckle up for the possibility of Emmanwori going really high and it might be closer than people realize right now.
And what you just said is perfect, Phil, because I think it screams this, and we have to tell all our loyal listeners on this podcast and viewers. When we hear things, it's not 32 teams all saying this one thing. So we don't know where these guys are necessarily going to come off the board. But when they say this guy is catching or surpassing him for us, then you assume, okay, you get another one saying it. So it's just like you're not going to check with 32 teams, but if you get enough saying that, it resonates. And especially when you see the skill set of a player, as I just said, 6'3", 227, who can fly, is going to test off the charts and played like a stud. Okay, showed up every week for South Carolina making plays. Malachi Starks fell back just a bit from what he was in 2023. That's why Emmanwori, once he gets to the workouts part of this equation, and people start looking at that talent and that potential in the NFL, and they see on display when they look at the tape what he was able to do, that's why he won't have to wait long. Now, the problem when I did the mock, I got down to a certain point. Once I had Malachi Starks going, by the way, 13 to Miami, where am I going to find a team that prioritizes safety enough to say, we're going to take this guy in the first round? That's the other issue we get into with these mocks. You got to hit the needs too. And it's before free agency. I got to Tampa Bay and I said, they could use a guy like this. Okay. With Winfield, they could use a guy like that. So that's why I went with Tampa Bay with Emmanwori, because once you get past here, safety is not a priority for a lot of those teams.
And it's kind of in the right range, too, for a safety, because it's going to take a pretty special player to go in the top 10 at safety, just because of the way that position is done. And again, we had a don't overthink it safety come out a few years ago, and Kyle Hamilton, who slides to 14th, right? Like, it's going to take a special player to go a whole lot higher than that. So 19, kind of a sweet spot there. The last one that I wanted to mention here, Mel, and again, the entire draft is available on ESPN.com. There's Ashton Jeanty going to the Broncos at number 20. But let me just say this. Love it. Love it. Love it. The guy's a special player. The Broncos, obviously, this past year, it was like, they couldn't fit. It was like, what was it, like Goldilocks, right? The three bears. It was like, not too much, not too little, right in the middle. They never found that right in the middle player for them in the backfield, right? It was 1 week Javonte Williams and Nyler, and then Tyler Bidet, and then next thing you know, it's some Audric Estime. They need a guy, I believe at least. I'm only bringing this up, Mel, because before people start screaming at you, what do you mean Ashton Jeanty is going 20th overall? How does it happen? How does he fall to number 20 overall?
The hard part for me was not giving him Colston Loveland.
Yeah.
And letting him get to the Chargers, where he'd be reunited with his coach, Jim Harbaugh, right? And they could use him. But Jeanty for Sean Payton, I think what goes on, not unnoticed, but 80 career receptions. He averaged almost 11 yards a catch with 6 touchdowns. We know he had the 50 rushing touchdowns, averaged 6'4" carry, and almost had 5,000 rushing yards. But everyone talks about contact balance and the attitude that he runs with and the desire he shows. People say, well, Penn State controlled. Penn State, he had over 100 yards rushing in that game. So at the end of the day, Ashton Jeanty for Dallas, I thought about Dallas at 12. They've gone Emmitt Smith, Zeke Elliott, but they got Tony Pollard in the 4th round. So I said, maybe they'll wait and get the receiver burden, take the running back, which is a very deep position. Okay. Some running backs we love are going to go 2nd or 3rd round that we love are going to go in rounds 2, 3, 4. Okay. There will be another Tony Pollard in the 4th round this year. Count on it. Believe me, there will be.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, the issue I had here was not going Colston Loveland. Okay. And letting him drop to the Chargers. I didn't feel great about that. But Jeanty, and I'm not a running back in the 1st round guy. But I do think, based on ability, and I grade on ability, not position and philosophy. On ability, I think he's the 9th best player in this draft. You're getting him at 20. I wouldn't sit here and scream and yell about a running back one at 20 when he's 9 on the board. Denver, for what they want, about Bo Nix, get that offense, even keep the momentum going. Can you imagine pairing Jeanty with Bo Nix?
It'd be a lot of fun behind that offensive line as well. And I'll take it one step further here. You said there's going to be another Tony Pollard in the 4th round. I believe there will be another Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round. I don't have the name yet, obviously, but I'm just telling you. Every time I
Aaron Jones in the 5th round.
Yeah, there's so many good backs that somebody is inevitably going to fall to the 7th round that can play.
And, by the way, Fielding, and I'm going to point this out to people who yell at me all the time about my stupid philosophy. It ain't too stupid when the NFL's buying in, because they don't like to buy in anything Kiper says. Believe me, in 47 years, they'll go against me every step of the way. So that ain't happening. But look at the 4 teams left in the playoffs. Where's the first round running back with the team that drafted him?
I got no for the Chiefs. Nope, not for the Chiefs. No, the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley. Jaden Daniels has Ryan Robinson Jr. Nope, undrafted free agent Austin Eckler was signed as a free agent. So nope. James Cook, a second-round pick, late second round. Nope. Ty Johnson, a sixth-round pick who's been waived, traded, waived again. No first-round running backs there.
Again, this is like the Leonard Fournette.
Yep.
Jacksonville drafted him, not Tampa Bay, where he won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. Okay.
Yep.
That's how I checked. The Giants drafted Saquon Barkley. He's with the Eagles now. So none of the final four have a first-round running back drafted with the team. So there you go. So that's always my argument about running backs in general. You can find them. It's not a knock against the guys that go. Okay. Yep. Now, I'm not knocking Josh Jacobs. I had a high grade on Josh Jacobs. No question. But you can get these backs. And you mentioned, hey, you can get a guy in the seventh. You get a guy in the fourth, fifth, sixth, 35 running backs. And we're not stretching it when we say 35 running backs have draftable grades. I mean, I'm looking at my running back group includes guys. I have pretty young. LaQuint Allen, very underrated out of Syracuse. We talked about him last week. Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. R.J. Harvey out of Central Florida. Okay. Devin Neal out of Kansas. I'm not even going to Scatterboo with Arizona State, who can do a lot of things for you. Okay. Caleb Johnson, Iowa. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, Ohio State. So
top
to me,
75 guys.
How about at Rutgers? How about Monungai? Kyle Monungai at Rutgers.
Kyle Monungai, yeah.
So we go on with running backs. And there's also one of my Orange Crushers coming up in the next few weeks is a running back people haven't heard a lot about. We'll get to him in another few weeks. But we can find running backs. But Ashton Jeanty will be a first-round pick.
All right, there you have it. Great stuff, as always, from Mel and the Mock 1.0. Go check it out in full on ESPN.com. That's going to do it for us today. A reminder, though, check this out. Monday, we're back. And not just on the podcast, not just on the YouTube. We're back on ESPN2. Check out the debut of First Draft. We'll be sure to post a link live on Twitter for those that want to watch it as we are taping it. Until Monday, we will talk to you all then. Enjoy the mock draft. Only send compliments because he's the GOAT and he deserves it.